Megaherzzz.
Megaherzzz.
You're listening to Megaherzzz on 4ZZZ.
I've really had a disaster this afternoon. You're listening to Megaherzzz on 4ZZZ 102.1 FM in the afternoon, and I'm sorry about that technical difficulty. I forgot to turn on my mic. Yes, but you're listening to community radio, and we're all volunteers here, and sometimes these things happen. So my name is Denise. My pronouns are she, her, and we're listening to Megaherzzz. We're the program that covers all feminist issues and showcasing women and femme-led music. To start the program, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land upon which I'm broadcasting from today with 4ZZZ, the Turrbal and the Yagara people, and pay respects to their elders past and present, and like to pay respects for their long custodianship of this land upon which we enjoy and live. And we've got a bit of a packed show for you today. We're going to be looking at, in our men's violence register section, we're going to be talking about, it's actually Domestic and Family Violence Prevention Month in Queensland. So we're going to be looking at that. And we're going to, in our A to Z of Feminism, we're going to have a look at what's happening in the feminist issue in Japan. And as I mentioned, this is a volunteer-run station predominantly, and certainly the announcers are. And in order to stay on air, we rely on subscription. So I thought I would do a little bit of talking about that because of, it's always good to have lots of volunteers here to keep us on air, but also we need our subscribers. And our subscription prize this month is a round table coffee voucher worth $264. And I think such good value. It's a Brackenridge. It's a great place apparently to go and hang out with lots of secondhand books, and you can grab a coffee and round table coffees there at Brackenridge, and sounds like a great prize. And I know we've had April Atonement. You get lots of prizes through April Atonement, but you may be luckier subscribing in May and just going for this voucher. So think about that. Keep our radio on the air, but also get that warm and fuzzy feeling of supporting community radio.
We want to take a moment to say thank you to Irina. Irina, you've subscribed to 4ZZZ for the very first time and gave us a $5 tax-deductible donation. That's amazing. Maybe you've only just stumbled across us on air, or maybe you're a long-time listener who finally decided to take the plunge and subscribe. We don't know for sure, but what we do know is we owe you a massive thanks for helping us keep our lights on. Thanks, Irina.
Good afternoon. You're listening to Megaherzzz on 4ZZZ 102.1 FN. And thank you, Mr. Starlin, for being kind about my technical hiccup earlier. I really appreciate the support. Yes, it can be nerve-wracking in here, and I am on my own because Sissy and Sarah have other commitments today, and sometimes being on your own, you miss some of the technical things that you've got to do on this program. But anyway, as I mentioned, we're coming into our Men's Violence and Femicide report. This is our commitment to highlight the issues of men's violence in Australia. We made that commitment 18 months ago nearly now, where we would talk about and honour the women that have died at the hands of violence in every week, and also talk about any issues that create this problem that we're actually experiencing in Australia. First up, though, I do want to remember Tallulah Koopman, who was stabbed to death in Elizabeth East, South Australia last Friday. In this case, a woman known to Tallulah has been charged with her murder. A friend told me she's a good girl, she's a very outgoing person, very genuine and a very nice person. She matters. Our information that we use for this segment comes from Sherele Moody, and she actually reports on women and children who die because of violence, not necessarily because of men, although it's predominantly because of men. The one this week is actually Tallulah was killed by another woman. I also want to pay tribute to Sherele Moody for the work she does, and on Mother's Day they held a vigil in Melbourne. She's got all the photos of all the women who have died from 2024 and to date this year up on a wall in Melbourne, and hundreds of people turned out for that vigil, and it looked like it was a really lovely event. And I just think if you can, please support Sherele Moody's work. There isn't anyone else doing this to the depth that she's doing in Australia, and it's such a harrowing and difficult issue. It certainly was highlighted in that Mother's Day vigil, the daughters and children that their mothers would not be present because they have been killed because of violence. So, it's look at Sherele Moody's Femicide Watch webpage or on her Facebook page, and if you can, please support her with a donation or buy one of her. There are some T-shirts and products to be bought as well.
Walking along with some friends on the street, this mate started giving his woman some grief. So I went up to him, stood up straight and said, hey, 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 what you doing there, mate? Hey, dude. Yeah, you. Why the attitude? Gotta give respect, don't blow your fuse. Hey, dude, show some gratitude. You can choose not to abuse. 1378, 9978. MensLine can help you out, mate. 1378, 9978. So you don't cross the line, don't you cross the line, mate.
We can help, can we help you?
Confidentially.
We can help, can we help you?
Talk to you.
We can help, can we help you?
Make a safety plan.
We can help, can we help you?
Hey woman, hey man.
Good afternoon, you're listening to Megaherzzz on 4ZZZ 102.1 FM, and you're listening to Denise. I'm here in the studio on my own today, and we were listening to a community announcement regarding the DV Connect MensLine, and this is around our segment that we have every week on domestic violence and men's violence and the Femicide report. But also, it is actually in Queensland the Domestic and Family Violence Prevention Month. So I want to talk a little bit about some of the information that's available on the Queensland website regarding this. The theme that they have for the month is Take Positive Action Today to Build a Safer Queensland. And certainly that's a major thing for women and men, women and children, in our in regards to domestic and family violence, because it disproportionately impacts women and their children as it's perpetuated by men predominantly. There's no place for control in a healthy relationship, but that's sometimes that's how domestic and family violence appears, where it's not necessarily violence, it's can be actually abuse, verbal abuse, but also financial and emotional and social isolation. They're all forms of abuse and are serious and are never okay. And so there's loads of support out there through DV Connect for women and for men in terms of this. So, we want to have a safe and healthy community. And domestic violence has a huge impact. Not only does it ricochet out into our community, it ricochets down through the generations, through trauma, and it's something that, you know, we can all work on, really, because it's sometimes challenging in relationships, especially if you feel that your needs aren't being met or things aren't going the way you like. But, you know, there's no place in a healthy relationship for control. And that's what this month is all about, of May, is being aware of that. And if you notice signs that someone could be experiencing domestic, family or sexual violence, start by offering them a safe space for them to talk, and just see if there's things you can do, and certainly direct them to the government, the DV Connect lines that are available, to see if they can get some support to hopefully maybe change that situation they're in. But also, if it is a tricky situation, they're getting support to be able to leave that abusive situation. We know that women are the most vulnerable time is when women say they want to leave the household. That's often when they are actually killed. So, yeah, it's something that I think all of us should be aware of, and certainly look out for situations with your friends if they seem to be you're losing touch with them, they're making excuses for not joining in, or any of those sorts of things. Anything that you think, certainly just make certain they're okay. One of the other areas that's important, obviously, is in the workplace, that there can be signs of being aware of, you know, your workmates that may be, expressing ideas that seem like they're experiencing domestic and family violence in their home. I did mention about, trying to support someone that you've noticed may be in trouble. They're on the Queensland Government site in the Need to Know area. There are practical tips on how to start a conversation if you're wondering how to do that and you're not quite sure and don't want to upset it's tricky when you've got friendships, how far you can sort of go with that. So, yeah, have a look at the Queensland website. There's lots of resources there that can help you to perhaps have that important conversation that may be able to help your friend and just help them to safety. That's the big thing. The theme for this month is safety of women and children. But I just want to talk a little bit about the drivers of violence, and a lot of it comes from our, societal attitudes and beliefs that we have about women. That's the main drivers of how domestic and family violence starts. So, yeah, just looking, remembering that any disrespect of women and girls aren't really laughing matters, like sexist jokes, remarks in the locker room talk. This is all the start of it. Disrespecting women, it means that, you may think that, therefore, I'm in a position where I can control that woman or whatever. It might seem small and insignificant, but the social cost is huge. So again, we're sort of asking, challenging these attitudes and behaviours, certainly on this program. Call it out. Again, that might be difficult, but it's certainly not something that we should be walking away from when women are being disrespected in a public forum amongst your mates or whatever. Call it out. It's not appropriate.
Are you renting your home and experiencing domestic abuse? If you have debts related to domestic abuse, Tenants Queensland's financial counselling service can assist with credit, debts and budgeting. If you are listed on a tenancy database due to domestic abuse, Tenants Queensland can also help to remove the listing. Call 1300 744 263 for confidential renting advice. Tenants Queensland, 1300 744 263. Proud sponsor of 4ZZZ.
Now we're going to go to our A to Z of World Feminism, and we're up to the letter J, and I wanted to go and have a look at Japan today. The main reason I was fascinated about the history for a long time, but I used to do Airbnb in my home, and I had a Japanese researcher stay with me for about 3 months, a woman who was doing a long-term study on asthma here at the Prince Charles Hospital here in Brisbane. And it was interesting, the cultural differences between, how it is for women in Japan as compared to how it is here in Australia. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about some of those challenges that women in Japan have in terms of equality, but also talk a little bit about some of the feminist actions that are happening as well. Some of the statistics are pretty stark. I mean, it is Japan is one of the G7, one of the wealthy countries of the world, but it actually ranks 118 out of 146 countries in terms of the gender gap ranking report from the World Economic Forum. Women earn estimated 22% less than men. There's over 1,600 top-tier companies in Japan, and there are only 13 women CEOs. Women occupy only 15.5% of executive positions, significantly less than any other developed countries. So it's definitely a man's world in Japan. Even in politics, in the 2024 cabinet, only 2 out of 20 ministers were women, and that was actually down from 5 in the previous administration. Even though the ruling Liberal Democratic Party set a goal to increase female lawmakers from 10 to 30% within the next decade, it is unlikely to meet this. The main reason is to do with the cultural differences, and I really found that with the lady that lived with me for 3 months. You know, there's a long history of it being very much culturally that a patriarchal society was heavily influenced by Confucian values, which emphasises hierarchy, loyalty and filial piety. So this always meant that men are the head of the household, responsible for public life, and women as submissive caretakers, relegated to the private sphere. Historically, the ideal woman was described as a good wife, a wise mother. And that sort of permeates through that. And I remember, having some chats with the lady that lived with me. She was quite frustrated because she was an academic, doing incredible research, incredibly intelligent, but the chances of her of being part of senior academia in the university where she was highly unlikely, really, even with all the efforts that she was putting in to get her qualifications and everything else. So quite, I think, would be a very frustrating situation to be in. A lot of it, in terms of the, it's not only because of the, it's just the cultural, they don't believe in activism to any great extent. So this flows through to the feminist activity in Japan. It's not mainstream. It's highly unlikely that they're going to get out and do lots of physical activism on the streets and so on in terms of that, because most Japanese people tend to avoid challenging established norms and prefer harmony, which can make this difficult to want to make waves. And so it's sort of understandable that it is going to be a challenging situation in Japan for them to turn it around to have equality in their business and government situations because of this very strong cultural background that women operate in, and traditionally, once they decide to have a family, it would be the woman that would stay home and be the homemaker and the caring of the children. One thing that this lady that lived with me said was that they don't have childcare. If you're going to do that, you'd have to have family to pick that up, or you'd have to pay a lot of money to have childcare. They don't actually particularly believe in it. And I wanted to talk a little bit about a feminist organisation. It's called Tomorrow's Girls Troop. It's a fourth wave feminist art collective founded in 2015. And its group comprises individuals of diverse genders and cultural backgrounds, including students, artists and working professionals. And they focus on intersectional feminist issues in East Asia, particularly in Japan, using art as a medium for activism. And they've had various art exhibitions around the country since 2015, highlighting different aspects of feminism, in terms of increasing sentences, facilitating the conviction of offenders in terms of domestic violence and certainly rape laws. The latest exhibition in 2023 was called We Can Do It, and it was a solo exhibition in Tokyo addressing topics like sexual assault laws, feminism definitions and transgender rights. So even though it's sort of not there is activism, it's just quieter than what we would have, particularly in Australia, how we would go about our work towards gender equality. And often there's a lot of anonymity, that's a hard word to say, anonymity in terms of this. So members often wear pink masks, a hybrid of a rabbit and a silkworm, symbolising women's labour in Asia and challenging traditional perceptions of femininity. This anonymity allows them to speak freely in a society that often discourages confrontation. When I was reading that, I was thinking to myself, I don't know that I would like that I would have to hide or, underground activism, I guess. But I guess that's what they have to do in Japan around the fact that their society is very much culturally weighed towards men's roles and the patriarchy, and not making waves, being liking peace and harmony and all those sorts of things. So that's been my trip to Japan, and I hope you've enjoyed learning about that. Just a summary of this program. Please take positive action to build a safer Queensland around Domestic and Family Violence Prevention Month this month in May. And also, I hope you enjoyed our trip to Japan. And I will be signing out until next week.
Isn't that what feminism is about?